Good day, everybody. Welcome to our next discussion, and this is about understanding the self, the physical, and the sexual self. But before I proceed any further, let me just share to you something that I'm always fond of sharing. This is about a story with a moral lesson. This is entitled "The Eagle Who Thought He Was a Chicken." A chicken farmer found an eagle's egg. He put it with his chickens, and soon the egg hatched. The young eagle grew up with all the other chickens, and whatever they did, the eagle did too. He thought he was a chicken, just like them. Since the chickens could only fly for a short distance, the eagle also learned to fly a short distance. He thought that what was supposed to do, so that all that he thought was to do was all the things that a chicken do. As a consequence, that was all he was able to do. One day the eagle saw a bird flying high above him. He was very impressed. He asked, "Who is that?" He asked the hens around him. "That's the eagle, the king of the birds." The hens told him, "He belongs to the sky. We belong to the earth. We are just chickens." So the eagle lived and died as a chicken, for that's what he thought he was. As we can see from the story, an eagle was raised alongside with the chickens. So all along akala nung eagle ay chicken din siya kasi lahat ng kanyang natutunan ay kung ano lamang ang ginagawa ng mga chickens na pinaniwalaan niyang kapatid niya. One time nang siya nakatingin sa langit, nakakita siya ng isang malaking ibon gliding across the sky at namangha siya at sabi niya gusto niyang maging ganon. But the hens around him told him na yon ang eagle, the king of the sky, at sila bilang chicken ay sa lupa lamang. So what is the lesson of this story? We should realize that you're an eagle. Okay? You may have been brought up in a situation that limited your understanding of your potential, but it's time now for the past to lose its hold on you. Ang ibig sabihin nito ay nobody can tell you na hanggang dito ka lamang. It is the one within you that will help you, okay, go beyond your limitation. Don't die thinking you're a chicken. Huwag ka dapat makontento sa kung anong sinasabi lamang na kaya mong gawin ng ibang tao. Soar high, just as you are meant to be. Be all that you are meant to do. So what I'm trying to tell you here as a moral lesson of the story is that you have that potential within you and nobody can tell you na hanggang dito ka lamang. Dapat ma-realize natin that our full potential lies within us. So again, let not circumstance define of your potential. Marami pa kayo na maibubuga. Start pa lamang yan. Alam ko nahihirapan kayo, but still, we must go on. We must rise above all these difficulties. Okay? Let's go now with our main lesson. This is understanding the self, the physical, and the sexual self. Okay. First, before we start with the sexual self, there's one important lesson that we have to discuss, and this is about the physical self. Okay. Actually, there are factors or two factors in the development of the physical self. Okay. The first one is on the aspect of heredity. When you speak of the aspect of heredity, or this is the nature part, this is the transmission of traits from the parents to the offsprings. Okay, this refers to the traits or characteristics from the parents going to the offsprings. It provides the raw materials of which the individual is made up. Through the genes, heredity potentials like physical, mental, social, emotional, and moral traits are passed down to generations. So when speak of the genes or the nature part of the factor, this refers to the genes and hereditary factors. This has something to do with the physical appearances, your personality characteristics. The other factor that influences the individual in the development of the physical self is everything about the environment. And this is the nurture part. Okay? So the environment is the sum total of the forces or experiences that a person undergoes from conception to old age. So it also includes the family, friends, school, nutrition, and other agencies one is in contact with. Okay? So the nurture aspect or the environmental variables include your childhood experiences, how we were raised by the family, how our relationship is with the significant other people, social relationships, and the surrounding culture. Okay, so if you're familiar with the nature nurture controversy, this is an age-old debate on whether the development of the individual is greatly influenced by heredity or by the environmental factors, and this is what we term as the nature nurture controversy. Well, as we have discussed, the nature and the nurture, the genes or heredity or the environment really greatly affect the development of the individual. Pero bakit naging controversy ang nature at nurture? Because again, we do not know exactly which one greatly influences the development of the individual. Whether it is the genes or heredity or whether the environment. So if you are to put it in mathematical perspective, are we saying here of a 50-50 sharing of the influence of the genes and the environment? Or are we saying here of 80-20 nature nurture, 70-30 nature nurture, or the other way? Okay, so this is the reason why it is called a nature nurture controversy. So again, going into the discussion of the influence of the biological influence in one's development, sabi natin that life begins at fertilization. Okay? So fertilization, when speak of fertilization, this refers to the meeting of the female sex cells and the male sex cells which are developed in the gonads. So again, pagka sinabi nating gonads, these are the reproductive organs of humans. So pagka sinabi nating reproductive organs of humans, we are referring to the gonads, and the male gonads are referred to as the testes, and the female gonads are referred to as the ovaries. Okay? So the sex chromosomes of humans define the sex, whether male or female, and their secondary sexual characteristics. Okay? So pagka sinabi nating secondary sexual characteristics, it has something to do with the characteristics associated with being male or female. Say for instance, having the breast, okay, and for the male, we have the having the body hairs, the mustache, okay. So from childhood, we are controlled by our genetic makeup. It influences the way we treat ourselves and others. But aside from our genes, our societal external environment helps shape ourselves. And this lesson, particularly this particular part, will help us better understand ourselves through the discussion of the development of sexual characteristics and behavior. Okay? So again, Mariev in 2001 explains that the gonads, as what I have told you, that when speak of the gonads, these are the reproductive organs of human beings. Again, pagka sinabi nating testis or the testes, this refer to the male gonads, and the ovaries, these are the female gonads. Okay, so it explains that the gonads begin to form until the 8th week of embryonic development. So it means that in the earliest stages of human development, the structures of males and females are alike, and they are said to be in the indifferent stage. Okay? So ang ibig sabihin nito, walang pagkakaiba ang structure during the earliest stage of human development ng male and female. Okay? Kaya ang tawag doon is the indifferent stage. And the formation of the male and the female structure depends now on the presence of the testosterone. Okay? So, again, just to clarify lamang, this is what I'm discussing to you is lifted from the handout that I gave you. Okay? So, the details of the things that I'm discussing, you can find all of this in the handouts that I gave you. Okay, so just a review that when speak of the male sex cells, we're referring to the spermatozoa, and the female sex cells, we're referring to the ova. Okay, so when the egg cell and the sperm cell meet and they became fertilized, then that is what we term now as the zygote. Okay, so the zygote is a fertilized egg which contains all the hereditary potentials from the parents. Okay, so yun ang ating zygote. Okay, so the release of the testosterone causes the formation of duct system. Remember that it is the presence of the testosterone which leads to the development of the male and female structures. Okay, so interventions in the development may cause abnormalities such as being pseudo-hermaphrodite or hermaphrodite, as well as cryptorchidism. Okay, so maybe you're familiar with being a hermaphrodite, the one which possesses both the male and female genitalia. Okay, so along with the development of the male and female structures, which is basically caused by the presence of the testosterone, okay, we now have the interventions along the way which can lead to such abnormalities. Okay, so puberty is the period of life at 10 to 15 years old when the reproductive organs develop to their adult size and become functional because of the rising levels of the hormones. Okay, again, that when we speak of the male hormones, we are referring to the testosterone, and the female hormones, we're referring to the estrogen. Okay, it is during the puberty period wherein we can now have the full development of the sex organs, wherein there's a release of the male and the female hormones. Okay? Kaya ito yung tinatawag natin na the reproductive organs develop to their adult size and become functional because of the rising levels of the hormones. Okay? Maybe you're hearing stories at a young age, may nabubuntis na. Okay? So, there are stories na marinig kayo elementary school age pa lamang, nabubuntis na, early pregnancy. So, why? Because at the puberty stage, 10 to 15 years old, the reproductive organs are fully developed or at the adult size na and functional. Kaya, pwede talaga na mabuntis at that young age. Okay? So, reproductive capability continues until the old age and in males, and of course, menopause in females. Okay? So, pagka sinabi natin that females are in the menopausal stage, yan yung time na sila ay hindi na capable of bearing a child. Okay? So, diseases associated with the reproductive system includes infections, which are the most common problems associated with the reproductive systems in adults. In females, normally we have the vaginal infections, which include the presence of the Escherichia coli or the E. coli, which spread through the digestive tract, sexually transmitted microorganisms such as syphilis, gonorrhea, herpes, and yeast. And of course, meron tayong tinatawag na tumors of breast and cervix, which are the reproductive cancers in females. So in males, the most common conditions are the prostatitis, urethritis, and epididymitis, which results of sexual contacts where STDs are transmitted. Pagka sinabi natin STDs, these are sexually transmitted diseases. Okay? So normally sa Tagalog, ang alam natin na mga sexually transmitted diseases, di ba? When somebody is said to have tulo, yan. Tulo, yan. That is a sexually transmitted disease. Pag sinabi nating sexually transmitted disease, it is a disease which came from having sexual contact or sexual act with another person. Okay? Another case is the prostate cancer, which is a widespread problem among males. And most women hit the highest point of reproductive abilities in their 20s. So yan yung tinatawag natin na medyo napakataas ng reproductive ability sa mga babae daw in their 20s. Kaya normally mga babae, if they really want to have a family of their own, okay, so mga mid-20s nag-start na silang mag-asawa so that they can have their own family, they can raise children talaga. In their late 40s, menopause occurs. Okay? So, yun nga, kaya problem doon sa mga individuals na late na nag-aasawa, medyo nahihirapan na sila na magkaroon ng anak. Particularly, if they are in their 40s. Okay? Pero it doesn't mean na pagka 40s na nag-asawa, hindi na magkakaanak. It doesn't follow. But in the late 40s kasi, menopause stage occurs for women. Okay? Estrogen levels also go down, causing the shrinking of breasts and the drying of the vagina. So, these are the things na nangyayari sa mga babae pagdating ng late 40s. Kasi bumababa na yung level ng estrogen, kaya may shrinking na. Yung dati medyo yung normal breast ng individual, ng mga babae, unti-unti ay medyo nagsasag na. Okay? And of course, the drying of vagina. Among males, there's no counterpart to menopause. Wala naman tayong tinatawag na counterpart sa mga lalaki na nagme-menopause yung lalaki pagdating ng 40s. Pero sabi dito ay although there's a record of a decline in testosterone level or secretion, pero healthy men are still capable to become father in their 80s and beyond. So, may mga ganong cases na kahit matanda ng mga lalaki, kaya pa rin maging father pa rin. Okay? So, unlike in the female, pagdating nila ng late 40s, medyo nahihirapan na sila na magkaroon ng baby. Okay? So, that's part, kaya nga may tinatawag tayo pagka past 40s na, yung, di ba may menopause baby na tinatawag tayo. Ito yung hindi lang inaakala na magkakaanak pa because of, they feel that they are on the menopausal stage and yet nabuntis pa sila. Okay, another topic that I have to discuss here is everything about the erogenous zone. Okay? And of course, that when we speak of erogenous, okay, sa inyo unang narinig ang erogenous zone. Remember when we discussed about the psychosexual stages of Erikson, di ba? For every stage, there is the erogenous part, the one that gives pleasure to the individual. So here, the erogenous zones refer to the parts of the body that are primarily perceptive and increase arousal when touched in a sexual manner. Okay? So, in layman's term, ito yung madali kang ma-arouse pagka ikaw ay na-touch sa part na to. Okay? Some commonly known erogenous zones are the mouth, the breasts, the genitals, and the anus. Okay? So, yun yung tipo that, di ba sabi nga, when you are into love making, that in order to heighten the emotions and the feelings during the sexual part, you have to understand where are the erogenous zones or areas of your partner. Okay? So remember, students, that we are only discussing this not to promote sex, but to know everything about your sexual self. Okay? So at least maging ano lang tayo, maging aware tayo of these things so that we can be healthy, and sabihin natin na aware tayo of where we know everything about our sexual self. Okay? So for human sexual behavior, when we say or when we speak of the human sexual behavior, this is any activity that induces sexual arousal. And there are two major factors that determine human sexual behavior. Number one, inherited sexual response patterns that evolved as means of ensuring reproduction that becomes part of each individual. Kumbaga parang this is innate to a person being a biological being. Okay? So, inherited sexual response patterns, means of ensuring reproduction. We cannot have yung mga next generations if not for sex. Okay? Hindi dadami ang mga tao kung walang sex. And that is one factor that determines human sexual behavior. Another one is about the degree of restraint or influence exerted by society in expression of one's sexuality. Kasi in other parts, merong tinatawag kasi na na taboo ang sex. There are those areas naman that they uh, other parts in the world na okay lang, wala-wala silang hindi tabu ang sex sa kanila, even yung different aspects of having sex with different people pinapayagan nila. Pero in the Philippines, of course, we know for a fact that we are sabihin natin na majority are Catholic, having that faith, kaya ang katuruan talaga sa mga Filipinos, you should have sex after marriage talaga, okay? But that's part of expression of the sexuality as part of culture or society. So there are types of sexual behavior. Number one, solitary behavior. Pagka sinabi nating solitary, mag-isa lamang ang ibig sabihin yan. Solitary behavior, self-gratification or self-stimulation that leads to arousal and climax. Usually done in private but also in social sexual relationship. It begins at beginning of puberty and usually involves fantasies. Ito yung mga tinatawag natin that you're doing self-gratifications, self-pleasure, masturbation. That's a solitary behavior, okay? So that's stimulation, self-stimulation, okay, that involves self-gratification, okay? So normally it's being done at an early onset of puberty. Okay? Ito yung medyo imaginative pang mga kabataan, the reason why they are involved in solitary behavior. The second one is social sexual behavior. It begins in childhood, motivated by curiosity such as showing or examining genitalia. Okay? Ito yung tipong nagiging curious ka na about what you have, okay, about the capability of having a relationship with other people. Okay, so necking or petting is considered as part of the learning process of courtship and finding a marriage partner. Ito yung nagsisimula ka ng mag-explore. Okay, kaya nga sabi natin, I know that you are in this particular stage that you are open for experimentation, experimenting, exploration. Kaya lamang, ito lamang ang gusto kong sabihin sa inyo, students, that if you really want to pursue with all of your dreams, okay, please stop thinking of having a premarital sex. Okay? So, I mean, of course, I cannot influence you that much, pero what I'm trying to tell you here is that you should be responsible. Sabi nga natin, if you are really into a relationship, okay, it's okay to have a relationship, pero yung sexual relationship, you put it on hold unless that you are really ready to go into marriage. Okay? So, coitus here refers to the insertion of the male organ in the female organ. Siguro narinig nyo na yung coitus interruptus, which is isa sa pamaraan ng method of contraception, natural method. Pag sinabi natin kasing coitus, this is the insertion of the penis to the vagina. Kaya pagka sinabi nating coitus interruptus, ito naman yung withdrawal method, wherein you are doing a coitus, kaya lamang if you're about to ejaculate, kaya yung gagawin dyan ay ilalabas mo yung penis at ejaculation will be outside of the female organ. Okay? So I hope everybody is not being, hindi ba kayo na, huwag kayong ma-offend sa discussion natin, but this is just part of understanding your sexual behavior. Okay, let's go now to the physiology of human sexual response. So sexual response follows a pattern of sequential stages or phases when activity is continued. Okay? What I'm trying to discuss here is okay, ayan, ito, sinasabi ko, hindi ibig sabihin kung bakit dinidiscuss ko ito is for you to try. Okay, no. Again, you are still in the stage na experimental in nature, kaya lamang put your thought of having sex on hold. Okay? Unless, sabi ko nga sa inyo, hindi naman ako pwedeng maka-influence talaga to stop doing it. Kaya lamang, if you're responsible enough, if you have bigger dreams for your future, what I'm trying to tell you here is that um, put those things on hold muna, okay? So anyway, sexual response follows a pattern of sequential stages or phases when activity is continued. Okay? Number one, or the first phase, ito yung if you're about to do sexual act, okay, having to have sex with the partner, the first phase or the first part is the excitement phase. Okay? Ito yung medyo you go into excitement. This is caused by increase in pulse and blood pressure, which results in increased skin temperature, flushing, swelling, rapid breathing, secretion of genital fluids, vaginal expansion, and muscle tension. Ito yung, this shows kasi, of course, the excitement phase, if you're about to do a sexual act, ito yung excited ka, kaya ito yung tinatawag na excitement phase. So, andyan yung increase in pulse and blood pressure. Okay? So, andyan yung nangangatal ka or whatsoever. Okay? So, there is vaginal expansion, secretion of preseminal fluids, okay, and then muscle tension. The second phase after the excitement phase is what we term as the plateau phase. Okay, the plateau phase is generally of short duration. If stimulation is continued, orgasm usually occurs. Okay? So after the excitement phase, kung titingnan natin, kung i-graph nyo yan pataas, yung excitement phase ay pataas yan. Pagka narating niya yung sa pinakataas, magkakaroon niya ng plateauing or yung parang ano lamang yung parang what do you call this phase? Plateau. Parang magle-level off lamang yan. Okay? That is the plateau phase after the excitement phase. The third phase is the sexual climax. This is a feeling of abrupt, intense pleasure, increase of blood pressure, spasms of pelvic muscles causing contraction of female organs, and then the ejaculation by the male. Also causes involuntary vocalizations. Okay? So ito na yung climax. Sabi nga, ito yung pinaka-rurok when two individuals are having sex. And then the fourth phase is the resolution phase. This is the phase wherein the individual return to the normal physiologic state. Male return to normal even if stimulation continues, but continuous stimulation produce additional orgasms in females. Okay? There are cases kasi na nagkakaroon ng problem. This is just for discussion purposes. Na kung saan ay may tinatawag tayo, minsan hindi sabay na nagkakaroon ng climax ang male at female. Sometimes, pagka nauna yung male, nauna yung female, magkakaroon tayo ng problem. Okay? So, anyway, yung sa resolution, yung babalik na sa normal na yung both males and females. Kaya lamang, may tinatawag pa rin na pagka daw may continued stimulation, ayan, may additional orgasm sa mga babae. Okay, so regarding the part of the biological structure of the individual that influences sexual response is that part of the nervous system called the autonomic nervous system. Well, if you're familiar with the nervous system is divided into two main divisions. You have the central nervous system, which is composed of the brain and the spinal cord, and the other one is the peripheral nervous system, or the PNS, in which the autonomic nervous system belongs. Okay? So the autonomic system is involved in controlling the involuntary responses. Okay? So pagka sinabi nating involuntary responses, that includes yung sexual responses and also, example, the heart rate, digestion, and the like. Okay? So with the initiation of the sexual stimuli, the efferent cerebrospinal nerves transmit messages to the brain, and the brain will interpret the message and dictate the immediate response of the body. So we know for a fact that all of the things that we're doing is something to do with the processing of the nerve impulses, okay, by the brain, okay? So the hypothalamus and the limbic system are responsible for regulating the sexual response. Okay, so again, there's that part of the brain which is responsible for regulating the sexual behavior of the individuals, and those are the hypothalamus and the limbic system. Animal experiments show that each individual has two sexual responses coded in the brain, okay? So based from the animal experiment, meron daw dalawang sexual responses coded sa brain. One is for mounting behavior and the other one is the mounted behavior. There are some reflex responses that are not brain controlled. Okay, again, I mentioned a while ago that everything that we're doing has something to do with, of course, the processing ng brain natin, and then saka babalik yan dun sa effector muscles natin. Example, pagka ikaw ay kinurot, okay, pagka kinurot ka, the reason kung bakit mo yan naramdaman, okay, because yung nerve impulses, okay, ay pumunta yan, dinala yan sa brain natin, pinrasis natin, kaya nalaman nating masakit, and ang reaction natin is tabigin or tanggalin yung ating kamay because of the effector muscles natin. But mind you, there are those aspects na hindi dumadaan sa brain natin, and these are the reflexes. Okay, so some of the reflex responses that are not brain controlled. So, ibig sabihin, hindi siya dumaan sa brain, pero pagkatapos na mangyari, ay saka iyan pumupunta sa brain so that we know what happened or what happened, para at least that's part of the learning ng individual. Example, one example ng reflex na tinutukoy ko, example, pagka ikaw ay pumunta sa kitchen ninyo, hindi mo alam, nakaluluto lamang nung ulam, kaya inangat mo yung takip ng kaldero, ay mainit yung takip, di ba biglang-bigla ay binibitawan mo yung takip because that is part of the reflex. Hindi yan nagpunta pa sa brain bago mo bitawan. Yan ay nagpunta muna sa reflex arc ng spinal cord natin, kaya immediate yung response. Okay? So, nagpunta yan sa brain magkatapos ng pangyayari. Kaya nalaman natin na sa susunod ay tinitingnan natin, di ba, hinihipon nyo ng paunti-unti yung takip para malaman mo lamang kung mainit o okay pa yung ating yung takip para mahawakan natin. Okay? So, one particular reflex response which that are not brain controlled, yung ejaculation for the male and the vaginal discharges for female. Okay? So, pagka sinabi natin not brain controlled, hindi yan brain ang nag-control, but rather it's a reflex response. Tulad nung pagbitaw natin sa takip ng kaldero, okay, dumaan mo na yan sa reflex arc ng spinal cord. But the brain can overrule, but take note but the brain can overrule these reflexes when sexual response is inappropriate. Okay, so there is this immediate role of the brain. So sabi natin, kahit yung ejaculation na yan ng male and vaginal discharge ay reflex responses not controlled by the brain, pero the brain can overrule these reflexes if those sexual responses are inappropriate. So alam ng brain natin when to have this done, at alam niya when to overrule these reflexes. So, sexual problems may be classified as physiological, psychological, and social in origin. Pagka sinabi natin ng physiological, this refers to abnormal development of the genitalia or part of the brain connected to sexual response. Maybe you're familiar with example, yung hindi nag-erect yung penis ng lalaki, that's something to do with a physiological sexual problem. Okay? So, yan yung ano natin. Maybe it's abnormal development of genitalia or the genitals, or part of the brain, there's an abnormal development or functioning of the brain connected to sexual response. Again, we're referring to the hypothalamus and the limbic system. And then when we speak of the psychological and social problems, these are caused by social inhibitions, attitudes, ignorance, and sexual myths held by society. Kaya nga sabi natin, if society tells that having this, doing this is a taboo or pinagbabawal, ibig sabihin, hindi mo gagawin yan. So, that can be part or form a sexual problem. Okay? So, students, I just made a micro discussion lamang of the things for chapter 5. Okay? So, the details of which you can find in the lecture handout that I have provided and I uploaded in the MS Teams. Okay? So, again, if you have concerns, regarding discussions, regarding the assignments, regarding the assessments, you can always send me a message here sa MS Team natin. You can send me a private message sa Facebook or any other platform that I have shown you. Okay? So again, thank you very much. Have a safe week ahead. Goodbye.